7 senses, the 3 sacred treasures. Civilization theory, Episode 0, The Origin of Civilization, Part 2. We are not in a crisis, and yet, somehow we can no longer move forward. Effort no longer guarantees reward. What is right no longer aligns. What is convenient no longer feels meaningful. This may not be an individual problem, but a structural problem of civilization itself. That was the question raised previously. The cause may lie, not within you, but outside of you. Civilization by nature is meant to have a cycle, like the changing seasons of nature, a flow that contains its own ending. But in the present age, the conclusion no longer functions. What has lost its ending cannot arrive anywhere. It cannot reach a destination. It is like a railway with no terminal station. That is why it cannot end. That is why it cannot move on. The reason we cannot move forward is not because there is no path ahead, but because what lies behind has never been closed. As a result, a sense of stagnation spreads. It is not that there is no exit. The very concept of an exit has been lost. Civilization does not move in fragments. It operates as a single structure. In other words, civilization functions like an operating system. If there is a design behind it, then this stagnation is not accidental. It is an inevitability, produced by structure. What is the civilization OS, and why has the conclusion been lost? The answer is this: civilization has lost sight of its own purpose. The core of the problem is not the visible phenomena, but the structure itself that generates them. And the key to that structure lies in the 3 sacred treasures. Within the oldest things lie the newest answers. From here, we begin to unravel that structure. The 3 sacred treasures existed before civilization. The reason the problem is hard to see is because what was once a simple mechanism has spread across society and become entangled in complexity. Complexity quietly conceals truth. That is why I believe the key to both the cause and the solution lies at the beginning of civilization. The answer may not be in the future. It may have been there from the very start. Let us shift our perspective backward and look from the origin of civilization. To return is not to retreat. It is the shortest path to essence. The perspective of the royal lineage OS. Why has Japanese civilization endured for so long? Behind it lies a structure centered on legitimacy and hierarchy. I call this structure the royal lineage OS. In Japanese mythology, the 3 sacred treasures appear as symbols of imperial succession. By inheriting these treasures, the royal lineage is preserved, order is maintained, and civilization continues. What matters here is this: what has been preserved is not the objects, but the structure. The inheritance of the 3 sacred treasures is the inheritance of the very mechanism that moves civilization. Invisible structures are what truly move reality. Redefining the 3 sacred treasures. The 3 sacred treasures are commonly known as mirror, sword, jewel. They only function when all 3 are present. Conventionally, they are understood as mirror, truth, righteousness, sword, decision, jewel, value. But their essence lies elsewhere. The 3 sacred treasures are not symbols. They are a structure. They were not created after civilization. They existed before it, as a minimal structure. The structure came first. Civilization emerged afterward. The minimal theorem of the 3 sacred treasures. Civilization is composed of 3 structures: jewel desire, sword time, mirror cognition. Human beings live by circulating these 3. When they are aligned, civilization moves. When they collapse, meaning is lost. This is not accidental. It is structurally inevitable. Because without desire, nothing moves. Without time, nothing progresses. Without cognition, nothing has meaning. Only when these 3 are linked does experience emerge. And that movement cycles as beginning, development, transformation, conclusion. Only a movement that contains its own ending can truly move forward. What is a minimal structure? If you add more, it becomes complex. If you remove more, it ceases to function. What remains after reduction? That is the core. Civilization is the result of this core structure unfolding. In other words, the order was reversed. It is not that structure exists for civilization. Civilization exists because structure exists. Only when structure comes first can civilization remain stable. Growth without a foundation will inevitably collapse. The divergence royal lineage OS versus Maitreya OS. Until now, civilization has operated the 3 sacred treasures as symbols. Even without understanding, they still function That is the strength of symbolism. This is the royal lineage OS, a structure that maintains civilization through symbols. Symbolization was effective in unifying society, but at the same time, it lost its cycle, and civilization lost its purpose. It can maintain, but it cannot evolve. Experience became disconnected. Structure became fixed. The conclusion was lost. As a result, civilization has transformed into a structure that expands infinitely within a finite world. Only development and transformation increase. It cannot end, and that expansion will eventually begin to collapse from within. Why problems do not get solved. In the modern age, we try to solve problems through understanding, but in reality, we are only layering over them again and again. The more we accumulate, the more complex things become, and confusion only deepens. Understanding and resolution are not the same. In practice, this appears as theories, systems, metrics, AI-driven judgments. We improve, but nothing ever truly ends. Why? Because problems are not structured in a way that allows them to end. We fix a system, new distortions emerge. We add more systems. In this way, problems spread in chains. We believe we are fixing them, but we are actually expanding them. Civilization continues to operate within a structure that cannot conclude. As long as it cannot end, old forms of good and new forms of good accumulate. And eventually, rightness itself begins to collide with itself. What is the Maitreya OS? So how do we resolve this endless structural deadlock? The answer is the Maitreya OS. The Maitreya OS is the next generation civilization OS. In contrast to the royal lineage OS, it is not an improvement, but a shift in the stage itself. By clarifying the standard of good, what was once scattered returns to its proper place. It is a civilization where fragmented values are realigned into structure. It transforms the way humans live, from living by intuition to living in alignment with structure, a guiding principle that can be implemented across individuals, society, and civilization, not by feeling, but by standard. It restores the lost cyclical structure. What could not end finally comes to an end, and only then can we move forward. What is Maitreya? Maitreya is not a specific individual. It is a state, a stage of integrated cognition. It is the transition from understanding good as divided to handling good simultaneously, a state in which what once stood in opposition can be perceived as a single structure. The process of convergence. Complex systems organize the positions of good, reevaluate against a standard, return to the original structure, redefine DCBA. By tracing backward, we approach the root cause and converge. It is not about moving forward, but about solving by returning. It is neither denial nor stagnation. By rearranging, we return to the original form. And at that moment, the cycle of beginning, development, transformation, conclusion is restored, an ending emerges. And only then can we move forward. What conclusion brings? When civilization regains its purpose. In other words, when it regains its conclusion, human beings, too, share a common destination. It is like the North Star in the night sky. Without a standard, everything loses direction and scatters. But when a center appears, everything begins to orient itself. Differences no longer become conflict, but positioning. Society is no different. Without a conclusion, rightness collides with itself. But with a conclusion, civilization and humanity can move toward the same future. The conclusion of civilization is the North Star that prevents humanity from losing sight of a shared future. Summary: civilization is now entering a new phase. From expansion back to experience. A stage where accumulation alone no longer fulfills. This is not about understanding, but a transformation in how the world itself is perceived. From here, the real journey begins. Everything starts by recognizing this structure and reclaiming it. The moment you see it, the world begins to move differently. What follows will be explored in Episode 1. This is only the entrance. This video is that entrance. From here on, we move beyond knowing into the realm of experience.